Well, I told Amy she didn't have to worry about me going over. For one, there's several reasons for this. For one, I talk really fast, and I'm so excited. Yesterday, I was listening to the presentations, and I was like, yes, yes. I mean, there's so many things that were so awesome and so good to hear, and NRCS aligns so well with everything that's been presented at this conference. It's really exciting. So I'm excited. I talk fast. It's going to go. So anyway, that, and everybody's already stole all my thunder, so I have a little bit less to say because it has been so great. It's not going. The big green button. This is a trick to make me slow down. There we go. Okay. NRCS offers voluntary conservation private on private lands that benefit both the natural resources and the producers. And I think that's been a common theme that I've heard, that we need to do stuff that works with the working lands, people's operations, not come in and change what they're doing, but find what works to make the biggest difference. We've been under this farm bill for 3 years, so I'm going to give you an overview. Most of it you probably already know. We've touched on a lot of these farm bill programs yesterday and again today. So I'll just give you a brief overview, but I think you'll see how they fit in great. What I do want you to notice is that on this slide, technical assistance is not listed. However, that is huge. It is the most important thing that we do. We are in almost every county. We have service centers, we have conservationists out there that develop that trust, that local presence, that credibility with that area so that we can implement these things. Without technical assistance, financial assistance, easement programs, it's all a wash. It doesn't matter. It's not going to go anywhere. We have got to educate while we're doing it, do it for the right reasons, target that conservation with a purpose. Or if we're just out there spending money because we have the money to put in conservation practice and it's not part of a system or there's not a good reason for it and we haven't educated and looked at things from a technical standpoint, there's no point in it. So I think, people look at us as a funding agency, but by far, we have got to maintain that technical credibility, and that's what drives everything that we do. Under the Farm Bill, to be eligible for any of the conservation programs, it's pretty easy. You have to make less than $900,000 in income averaged over 3 years. You have to own or manage or have control over some working lands. And you have to be in compliance with HEL, highly erodible land, and wetland conservation compliance. It's pretty simple. And it's true, we talked about the diverse and landowners and the opportunities that we have. We reach a lot of people. And back 20 years ago when I was out as a technical conservationist in the field, I worked with people from 50,000 acre ranches that had been in ag for a long time. There was a lot of work to be done. They knew a lot, did a lot, lots of tweaking and things, lots of education. And then I moved to a little bit more urbanized area and worked with a psychiatrist, for example, that just thought it would be great to buy a couple 100 acres and put a bajillion horses and donkeys and some cows and chickens and everything else romantic out there. But that was so awesome. What she really wanted to do was use the donkeys and horses for therapy for kids and stuff. Great. Had a clue not. Wanted to do the right thing? Absolutely. There was so much we got done. And not just with her, then it carries over with other people. A lot of time it took, a whole lot more than the 50,000 acre ranch. But was it worth it? Absolutely. Never once did she think that, 10 horses combined in a 3 acre paddock would cause a problem. That's what people do. Or, that the donkeys were right, swimming in the stream. It's no big deal. She was even composting manure right on the stream. But that's, we fixed it. And really, we have an opportunity with these people. I don't mean to bash her. She was really awesome. The opportunities are there. Traditional, non-traditional. There's so many people we can work with. Okay, so I am briefly going to hit on all of these conservation farm bill programs. I like to look at them as tools. So these are just tools in our conservation package. We heard that it was great to provide incentives for landowners. Absolutely. Do we need to educate? Absolutely. Do we need to inventory and analyze what we have out there? Work within people's operations? These are tools to help get that done. So I'm just going to cover them super fast. EQIP, we've heard a lot about EQIP. This is where we provide technical and financial assistance to implement conservation practices that solve natural resource concerns. So, Ruth was talking this morning about how she was anti-government. No, she did not want any help. And I've met those people where somebody actually yelled at me, "I don't want government money. No, I'm not going to go into a contract with you," because you don't understand. There's an education out there that we're not there to change your operation, to make you do something that you don't want to do. What are those practices that have conservation benefits that work with your operation and educate you along the way? So that's what this is for, and it all starts with just basic conservation planning. So it's not a laundry list. People don't come in the office and look and say, "I want to do brush management or prescribed grazing." Structural practices, management practices, they're all in there. We can give incentives to change management. We can do this. But it starts with basic conservation planning of the whole entire operation. And then where does this program fit in to make those benefits happen and get that monarch habitat, that bird habitat, that whatever it is, soil erosion, water erosion, air quality, those kind of things. Where does it fit in? In this farm bill, it did away with the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program, WIP. And so I just wanted to point out that on this slide, it says that there's a minimum of 5% mandatory of wildlife because WIP was rolled into EQIP. In Texas, we like our wildlife, guys. I didn't call because I'm not old school. I emailed. I would have texted him, but he doesn't text. So I talked with our programs manager and said, how much do we actually spend on wildlife practices? Because we have to meet this mandatory 5%. In Texas, never falls below 40%. So we are doing great. There's people out there that are interested, taking advantage, and we can always do more, always do more. One thing that's important to know, there's no signups. So sign-up periods or you don't have a 2-week window to come in. We take applications for EQIP year-round, which is great because somebody hears about the program, comes in. That gives us time to do that conservation planning, educate, and then we will have ranking periods, and there will be a funding period. So anybody that has signed up between now and then, or even before that didn't get funded, we'll roll it into. One thing that you guys might not know is that this is actually a locally led program. So it's not top-driven. The people at the field, locally led work groups, just like we had work groups yesterday and again today, those work groups, stakeholders in those local communities come together and decide what resource concerns are priority. So you guys have an opportunity to call your service centers and your NRCS conservationists and figure out when those locally led work groups are and have an input on how those funds are used. It's a pretty good process when it works right, but people need to be involved. Okay, so you are, say, that 50,000-acre ranch that I talked about, doing things pretty dang good, have a lot of experience. There's not any major problems out there. You don't have any big gullies that you need some major EQIP dollars for or major specific problems. But you're thinking, my neighbor has a lot more pollinators than I do. Or maybe I want some bats. Or I could do things a little bit better. I want to kick it up a notch. That's what CSP is for, and it's a great program. It just promotes good stewardship. So it's for those people that are already doing a great job. It'll give you an incentive payment to continue doing that, as well as add enhancements, and you can get incentive payments on top of that for providing those enhancements, along with the education of how to get it done. Checking my time. Okay. Easements. Easements are a good tool that are not used often enough. It's not for everybody, but I think as we heard this morning from the panel, they are a good tool. We do have a problem with land being converted to non-ag uses, and we all know that those open spaces are important. It's important for wildlife, it's important for air quality, soil health, it's important for everything. So these are tools. In the old Farm Bill, we had the Farm and Ranch Lands Protection Program, Grassland Reserve Program, and the Wetland Reserve Program. I'm sure everybody's familiar with those terms. They didn't go away. We just changed the name into the Agriculture Land Easements Program and then the Wetland Reserve Easements. So there's, it's actually the Ag Conservation Easement Program, ACEP, because we like our acronyms, and then there's ALE and WRA within those, because one acronym's not good enough. We need 3 for one program. But the benefits are huge, especially for wildlife. So if we can get people to take advantage of these, that's great. Just to give you a little bit of an idea on ALE, so you're looking at your crop and your range. Those we will pay 50 to 75% of the fair market value for the easement, and it all, it depends on the priority location, the chance that it'll get converted, that sort of thing. And then that's going to keep that land in ag for that term of that easement, and also have conservation issues or conservation improvements on that. Now, the Wetland Reserve Easement Program, that we pay anywhere from, it's more, 50 to 100% of the fair market value for those wetland reserve easements. And to be eligible for that, it also has to be able to be restored successfully. So we're also going to pay up to 75% for the restoration of that program. So there's a lot of good wildlife benefits on that tool. Lots of good if you can take advantage of it. Okay, I got to start talking faster. Which is usually not a problem for me. But RCPP, there we go, RCPP, Regional Conservation Partnership Program, awesome. Partner-led, partner-driven, this is where you guys come in. This is where you say, I'd really like some of those Farm Bill programs listed there to be able to use for my purpose. So you drive this program, you put in a proposal, and you say, you leverage it. So you're gonna leverage funds, people, outreach, education, everything to make that success and get that conservation on the ground in that location that you propose. Now you propose that. Worst case scenario is you have this great idea and you write it down on their proposal, you submit that proposal and it gets funded. Right? Best case scenario is you call us, we sit down together and say, how can we do this? How can we actually use our people, your people, our funds, and get this accomplished in a 5-year period to actually make the most benefit? And we work together on this because it's partner-driven, but the most successful projects that we have are the ones that we're involved in. Not that we need to change everything that you do, but so that you know what we can bring to the table and what's going to work best to get these things obligated. So we welcome those calls. If you guys have ideas, want to pursue this, please do. It's a great way to just to get stuff done, get conservation done efficiently, effectively, and together. Because as we've heard for the past 2 days, all of our goals and they overlap. So let's partner. Ruth said it best, partners are powerful. And that's what that program is all about, as well as the Working Lands for Wildlife. That's just a collaborative approach to get conservation or conservation habitat for targeted species on the ground. We work with partners, again, and private landowners to do financial and technical assistance. There's a theme to help plan and implement conservation. It's really looking at that target approach. We have, just look at the monarch butterfly. We have that whole area of habitat in Texas. So we can't do it all the first year. So what can we and our partners come together and look at to actually make some improvements? Which ones are going to be the most, give us the most biological returns for those efforts, and then branch out from there. And it's based on the model that we always use, being local, being in that office, having that presence to work with those landowners, starting with conservation planning, then and knowing that we've got that shared approach with our landowners and with our partners, that what's going to work, those wildlife-friendly improvements that we can make within that operation to really make a difference and to educate. Again, target where you're going to get the most biological returns. And what's critical and keeps us accountable is the science. So yesterday I was so fired up hearing about all the science of the monarchs, and then today the conservation practices and the science behind those. And then that's our job to go out and sell that science, but on the front end and put meaningful stuff on the ground. That's what we want to get done. And then in turn to measure those outcomes with science-based methods. Working lands for wildlife leverages. We just can't go without leveraging. We need partners, we need people, we need other people on board to get that work done. And we also partner, this program, we partner with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide predictability under the Endangered Species Act so that we're not out there threatening the landowners. I did have a landowner one time, way back when lesser prairie chicken, he was like, it took me, I probably worked with him for a year or so, great guy, super, and then finally he was like, hey, I've never taken you to this one pasture because they have lesser prairie chickens and I didn't want you to know, but now I trust you. It's that kind of thing. And so he's like, you want to go see him? And he was really proud of him. And like I was going to turn him in. We don't do that. We don't. Okay. So in Texas, we have 3 working lands for wildlife projects that are currently going on. Lesser prairie chickens, we have mussels, that's a new one, and of course the monarchs, right? And I am finishing up, Amy. So we all know ag producers are part of the solution with monarchs, and so this, it's a national project, covers all those states, and then here is what I was kind of talking about. So we're looking at targeting, we've selected 28 counties that we feel that are doable. So we are going to start there and work really hard, make those the priorities. That's not saying if we don't fill those that we're not going to branch out and move. Those are just the priority. Everything in green is eligible, but those are our priorities we're really targeting, and that's kind of the theme for that. We heard this morning about the conservation practices and the benefits and how to do them. That's what we want to take. And again, it's not a laundry list. These are going to start. We all know, and I can beat this dead horse even deader, that we're going to start with conservation planning. So which ones of these fit into which operation in your management regime, and how can we make those improvements? It's not like we can't just offer up practices and say pick 2. It doesn't work that way. So we still want to be technical. If you have any questions, don't ask.